Our next speaker is Kevin Casey, who is the founder and CEO of New Avenue Homes.
I'm going to stay on my 20 minutes, maybe. Okay. Are you guys with me? Looks like everyone's with their phones and getting their coffee and getting settled. So I'm Kevin Casey. I started a company called New Avenue Homes 10 years ago out of Berkeley, specifically to build accessory dwellings. And then we've gotten pulled by homeowners into all sorts of directions. What that means is 90% of our projects start as accessory dwellings and half end as accessory dwellings because people find other needs. Might be a junior ADU in progress or something like that. Or, which I was just joking with some friends, this photo here, not an ADU. It's West Berkeley, 1,500 square feet. The owners contacted us for an ADU and then got into design and all that thinking. Turns out they could get a use permit, which is not that bad of a permit process, it turns out, and put in a 1,500 square foot home in their backyard. So the owners are going to move into that and they're going to rent out their main house. The owner told me, she's like, we have 2 requirements. The renters have to have kids and they have to have dogs so we can be around them. So I'm like, all right, this fits with why we started this company. Most of what we do at New Avenue is educate homeowners and talk to them about what stuff costs and how long it takes and what you're going to want. This is a map of projects we've done or are doing. There's about 350 in the Bay Area. We have some other projects in other cities in Portland and LA and stuff. I'm going to walk through 3 case studies, one in Concord. I'm glad I chose Concord after seeing the last energy efficiency one because I can point out a few things. One in Berkeley, that's a garage conversion, and then a detached, maybe probably net zero energy one down in San Jose. Let's see if I can. The stat, I wrote something down. Those projects, that actually represents over 1% of the 35,000 we want to do. So we only have to do 100 times this to get to our goal. Which in my world, that's not a joke. That's not that hard. So Concord's the first one. This was a project for, it's a grandmother who owns the main house. The granddaughter built it for herself. She's, I think, a nurse or something like that. And it's small. It's about roughly 24 by 15. So it's a little studio. They have a loft. When I think we were getting grilled on what people put in their attics, I was thinking people, not ducting. But the right half of this design is about a 5 to 6 foot loft that she's going to fit a little bed in, which works for younger people. Obviously a terrible idea for anyone over 30. A really, really bad idea. Really bad idea if you're getting, 60 plus. It's shoehorned in the back left corner of the property. So you can see, and I looked at this design, and the first thing I thought was that lower right corner, that's the garage with a little space behind it. That's a perfect carve out. It's got one person living in that whole main house. It's not a huge home, but nonetheless, it's a perfect place for a carve out, not a detached unit. But the grandmother who's lived there for decades, like it's her home, she doesn't want to change. She has her habits. She wants those rooms. And a detached separate unit is also what her granddaughter really wanted. She wants privacy and separation and all that. And at first, honestly, I kind of squirmed a bit at this site plan. I'm like, you're using up a lot of yard space. I might add, that first photo is a marketing photo on that first slide. Most of the photos I'm showing are flyby construction progress, photos. This is not my marketing presentation. So that's the ADU on the right. You can see the plywood. That's the main home on the left. You can kind of see what is a buried picnic table on the left. It's a good yard space. So shoehorning a detached unit into a backyard does work fairly well. This, regarding energy efficiency, does anyone see anything in here that pops out to them? That's not good for energy efficiency. Well, we use spray foam throughout. If I zoom in, exactly. Of course, you're the one that gets it. So even the contractor, who's great, so New Avenue's business model, I should just say, because we're a design build firm, we work with independent architects and independent contractors who run the design and the construction themselves, but homeowners come to us for the whole process management components. We've got a process management and project management software system, and then architects and contractors. So the architects and contractors are independent, but work with us very extensively. This contractor works with us exclusively. But yeah, he's like, you need insulation outside the envelope. There's so much wood because of the structural engineering. The 2x6 with the staggered studs would work here, We haven't been able to pull that off ever in a project. But if you look, there's, to quote the contractor, every 6 inches you got a 4x6 stud, which is a slight exaggeration, but it's not too far off. For the attic point, we used closed cell spray foam insulation throughout the whole building. It was 108 degrees outside when they were working inside, more or less on this day, pulling PEX piping through. And it was very comfortable inside. 3 things you want to see is code did improve this, this design and the quality of construction. And by code, I don't mean just the general code. I mean the, who here knows what squiggly lines around comments mean? Do you see the, anyone? So when you're an architect or a contractor, you put together I know these two do. You put together your permit set, which might be 15 pages for an ADU when it's all said and done. The first 2/3 is architectural. The last third is probably the engineering, structural engineering, typically. And you got lots of stuff in there, like, your waste diversion plan and all sorts of stuff. So you write up all these kind of comments that are scattered all throughout, and then you submit for your building permit, and then you get back plan check comments. And then you address those comments. So you get a list of 5 or 10 or 50 questions from the plan checker in the building department. And when you, as an architect, respond, you put a little squiggly line around where you're addressing a comment. You're like, comment number 1, comment number 2, comment number 3, etc. So in here, you can see 4 comments that were made that were responses to the plan check comments. The first one is, we're using indoor heat unit for heating and cooling with a mini split heat system, which I think we've got a fan of. A couple of fans of in this room. The second one was spray foam insulation gets us up to R47 in the roof on the lower left. And then the third one is the elusive beast of exterior, not on the roof. We've actually only done that once, which was on my own house, insulation on the roof, and in Eichlers, right? Everyone knows you got, whatever. An Eichler will have a 2x8 board for the roof that has tar paper or whatever on top, or asphalt shingles on top, and then exposed wood underneath, and that's your entire system is the wood. So homeowners do voluntarily build roofs on top of that and insulate that. Other than that, people don't. We've never insulated roofs, but we did insulate the exterior wall assembly. So that's a 2x6 wall with spray foam insulation and then 1 inch of rigid. And that really does perform exceptionally well in Concord, where it gets up to 108 degrees or so. So that was project number 1. Project number 2 is a garage conversion in Berkeley. This is a Google Street Maps view. It's the house sort of in the middle. You can see a glimpse down the driveway where there used to be a 2-car garage. Tons of people, it's easy for them to visualize that garage turning into something else. We really angular box at the end of your driveway does not mean that needs to become the ADU, because you're probably building a 100% new building, and there may be many other ways to do that. A lot of times people realize that a project like this, I think costs have come up. This was over $300,000 in work, not the ADU though, exclusively. That was maybe 2/3 of it. If I show the next, oops. You can get a glimpse here. Maybe I don't know how clear it is from your angle, but the whole house had a dry rot issue in the old home. So when you get into accessory dwelling unit construction, you're dealing with old houses. This house had been a rental for years, decades prior to the current owner. So they had to rebuild the whole crawl space wall, waterproof, trench, do all sorts of drainage all the way around just to get the structural integrity of the main house up, which is a big chunk of work. The garage in the back did become that ADU. Let's see here. It's about 18 by 20, so 375 square feet, kind of a 1-bedroom, technically a studio, small, but this was done by a young professional who travels like 4 days a week, every week. He's a management consultant, one of those McKinsey types, and he rented it to a friend who was not as, jet-setting successful, who needed a cheap place to live, who he kind of wanted someone around. So either way, it's two buddies really making it work. Our marketing materials at New Avenue are oftentimes this bar chart on the right. This is how much money was spent by the homeowner for architecture, permitting, and engineering and construction over the course of 26 months. Construction was months 18 to 26 on the right. Month 22, when nothing was spent, was there was a change and a revision. I forget what the revision was on this project, but literally like something significant changed during the course of construction related to, I should have committed that one to memory. But either way, oftentimes people change their mind about something, the homeowner, which is a big problem. We try to minimize that. And when they do that, if you change your heater from whatever, heat pump to a gas wall unit or something like that, you got to do new Title 24 calcs, new resubmittal, drop it off at the city, wait for it to come back, and the job sits idle while that occurs. Oh, this was a height issue. That's what that happened. There was a grading issue once they started excavating, and then the height of the roof was off a little bit, but it was allowed to be a little bit taller, so we just did a revision for that. But that first 18 months, that was design and permitting, and that's a good speed, frankly. It was the old days, which means they had to go through the planning department first, the building department second. But that's how long it took. And oftentimes we show the total cost, as well, like at least on our site, what that all adds up to, so that homeowners can understand, like, yes, I'm signing up for 18 months or 26 months to permit, and then 26 months to get it done, and $250,000 for the cottage, and then $50,000 to $100,000 in deferred maintenance on this home that I bought. This is where it gets interesting. This is where we move from the last presentation of code stuff to the down and dirty world of converting a garage. This garage, you can see roughly, I don't know, 30 or 40 2x4s hanging off of that plywood sheathing. The reason that's the case is this is a remodel. So I could do a quiz, which of these walls are the remodeled walls, right? We had to maintain 50% of the walls in the structure for it to technically be a remodel, to keep it on the rear property line and 18 inches off the side property line. Nobody on the planet, including everyone enforcing the codes, thinks that this is a good process for building a building. Because what happened was the old garage was full of dry rot, full of like mold, mildew, termites had infested it. The neighbor's house, which is sort of to the left, had eroded down and buried the lower 12 to 18 inches of the old garage, which meant the termites and water and whatever just went straight in. So the fix for that was gut everything except the 2x4s, screw in a bunch of plywood, build a bridge that you can't really see in the back that cantilevers the whole thing that it can hang, and then dig out everything underneath, put in a proper foundation with gravel, sand, insulation, rebar, of course, all the concrete you see, and then build the whole structure around it and weave this old wood into the structure, which maintains the 50% compliance rate. One thing I might add, this has happened many times on many jobs, and it's the right decision based on the rules. There's a little bit of a game where the contractor will talk with the inspector and say, let's be honest, how much of this can I take away? There's no point to this rotten old wood. We have had jobs shut down where that conversation had a certain level of understanding that the contractor thought they could take more away than they were allowed to. And then it gets kicked back into this whole like variance level review in the planning department, which in some cases it was $10,000 in time and design fees, 6-month delay, clients were irate, crushed. You can find our 1-star Yelp review from the client in Santa Cruz that this happened to. So really we want to give the contractor something in writing so saying they can do this in some way. I do think the word I was thinking, you kept saying, what was the word you kept using for reinterpretation? Clarification, right. So I guess in the code book, you say clarification. In the field, you use interpretation. So they can interpret that wood to be there or not, is another way of saying it. So here's your close-up, the bottom 2 photos. You can see the termite trails a little bit. You can see that where the nail is in the lower left. I mean, there's really nothing left, but it had to be maintained. It was a great project when all said and done. It had 8-inch thick walls. It was climate zone Berkeley, so that insulation worked fine for this project. We have other projects where we have to get up a couple of extra points in R value where they use rock wool, and that gets the job done in places in Berkeley. It's going on as we speak. Heat pumps are, it seems like the theme of the day based on the last couple of presentations. Those are the things that I would say that's like the cutting edge for what you can practically get homeowners to truly adopt. And it's actually very hard to make that happen. Not from the homeowner buy-in side, but from the couple million legacy people that have opinions about furnaces. And that means we've had projects permitted, installations ready to go with heat pumps, and a contractor pops up, not someone working with us, a friend, neighbor, referral, comes in out of nowhere and is like, you need to get forced air. That thing's not going to get the job. That heat pump thing's not going to work for you. And I might add, homeowners choose the heat pumps for the air conditioning first, I think, and the efficiency second. It's really hard to try to explain electricity, kilowatts, BTUs, therms, and all that. The way I do it is I just use dollars. It's like, it's going to be $70 a month in electricity costs. With a heat pump, it's going to be $400 a month with a Costco plug-in radiator heater. And it'll be $70 a month with a gas furnace. So the heat pump's the same, and you get free electricity, or free AC. A little bit below the level of thinking we're doing here, but it works with homeowners. But it has been very hard. We've had people try to insist on revisions to take heat pumps out because the furnace salesman came around or another contractor came around and said these things, electricity is expensive, and then they quote the Costco radiator resistance heat costs per usage, which is wrong with heat pumps. They're many, many, many times more efficient. We do oftentimes run hot and cold water from the main home out to the in-law unit. Like that Concord site plan was a perfect example. It was 6 feet underground to run the hot and cold water. You don't even need a recirculating pump there. It might be 15 feet to the water heater. A lot of times we do that, and then we get to put a new water heater in the main home, which the homeowners have been, delaying, which is a win-win. And then just some basic stuff that we see cruising around is like sealing the sill plates and the electrical outlets to reduce just airflow. So that was the Berkeley lessons learned. Last project I have here, San Jose. This was for a homeowner who really did geek out on energy efficiency. The funny thing I learned from him, well, first he showed up. This was the owner's sketch, SketchUp design. The main house is on the left. It's a house that he lived in for a while, then moved away from and has rented for a long time. Now he's putting the unit on the right in, and the owner oriented that whole main roof to get optimal southern exposure to put solar on the ADU. And then what we did, notice the shape of that. An L-shaped design is a simple design to kind of come up with. Once you go down to the planning department, think things through, turns out there's lots of setbacks. This is the design that works. A little bit under 600 square feet, that corner cut off at the corner, on the top left is because of the angle of the lot and some setbacks. They still fit a very nice, nothing to do with energy efficiency, but a very nice bedroom with a walk-in closet. People like storage when they downsize into these units or move into them. But it's a great size unit, and we do a lot. Most of the time, people max out the size they can get. 640 used to be the max. We did tons of those over several years. Now we're getting people that are pushing it up. I mean, that 1,500 square foot project on the first slide I showed you was a good example. If people can build bigger, they can, and I'm all for, ironically, the small house world. Like, the bigger you can build it, the better the product is going to be at the end of the day for the people that are living there. So, to quote clients, feel very connected to my solar panels. I love them the most of anything else in my house. Don't want their effort to be wasted. I think he said, they work so hard for me. It wasn't until I got solar, but this is the interesting point. It wasn't until I got solar that I really started to care about efficiency. It made me feel like it was mine and I didn't want to waste it. There's an odd thing that occurs in the design build world where people get very excited. I just checked when we were sitting here, like, none of us have a huge Instagram following I can bet on. Like Fire Clay Tile, which makes beautiful, pretty tile, which I just checked randomly, has 123,000 followers on Instagram, and that's a tile shop in San Francisco. People like to buy stuff first and then care for it second, which is a problem in the efficiency world. Solar panels led this guy to start really geeking out on the efficiency stuff, and he did get excited about getting towards net zero, and then he's a true engineer who's like, he won't say that it's going to be net zero because he doesn't know that what the tenant's behavior is going to be. But it was designed with 4 kilowatts branching off of the main house to get enough power to the in-law unit. And which every time we've put solar onto a property as part of an ADU, it's gone onto the main house. You just get a bigger roof and it makes it work. So that happened here. And then he was motivated by the sunsetting of fees of rebates as well. So that was that point. The main house sits perfectly for solar. Submeters are an issue that come up over and over and over. where homeowners are afraid of paying 10 or 20 or 30,000, whatever they hear a new meter might run. It turns out you can buy sub-meters. You can find them on Amazon, and licensed electricians can install them, and you can go out and check it once a month or every 6 months as a homeowner and say, this is how much electricity went to the ADU. And you can just do a little side bill to your tenant, which means a lot to homeowners. This guy's using it as a profit center. He's like, I've got a lease rate of 23 cents kilowatt hour, and then I can generate it 10 cents kilowatt hour. So I'm going to make my money back faster off the tenant. So that was that. And a few things I've made notes of as we were going through. The big thing that we've learned that has changed is impact fees have gone away. That project in Concord that I showed, they shouldn't have had to pay a water hookup fee, an impact fee for the water hookup, but the county actually did assess it. So this audience, a lot of you are government affiliated. There is a big challenge with getting, with the number of codes that are changed and state laws that are changing. I don't blame anyone for not knowing them. Nobody does. But the Concord job, they paid, I think it was over $25,000 for a new water meter and hookup that they didn't have to do. And after they paid it, then I heard about it, and I was like, you can just email and say, hey, there's a state law that says I don't have to do this anymore. And that did avoid another fee for a similar sum for a new sewer lateral, which was going to be a second branch to the middle of the street, which is a total waste, of effort. So either way, impact fees for those kind of things have gone away, and there's an opportunity though to sort of at least get homeowners to be aware of those fees going away. School fees and some other fees, and I think I was just chatting with Jeff about this, but people don't really resist those fees. They kind of find a way to feel good about a $2,000 fee for the schools. So those are 3 examples. This last one that I'm showing, somebody asked what architects get wrong. 2 points, then that's it for me. Someone asked what architects get wrong. The thing they get wrong all the time are costs and schedules. They should not be allowed to speak of that. They shouldn't be expected to speak of that. It's really hard to understand where that money goes over 18 months. Like, one of the biggest problems as an architect is you write a proposal, you're optimistic, you don't plan on spending in San Francisco maybe 3 years of, 3 months of design and 2 3/4 years or more of fighting with neighbors and educating the owners and all this other stuff. That, they don't like writing proposals because they don't want to remember how long it might take. And then they just have to bill a couple hours a month, and the architects never make any money, frankly, because they just stop billing, or they don't bill enough because they feel guilty about writing a proposal for 100 hours, and then they're 2 years in and it's 200 hours. And that's just their own job, let alone all the permit fees, which are going to change over the course of a year and maybe be applied, maybe not. And then, of course, construction, which who knows what construction is going to do in 2 years, and who knows what a homeowner is going to want. The sky's the limit around here. So costs are always wrong. That's part of the reason we always advertise, we have advertising material on our site where it's 3.5 years and $350,000 for a basement conversion in San Francisco. Start with that, and we'll actually probably get it done on time and on budget. Last thing, there's a new book coming out that heavily focuses on accessory dwellings, and I got a kick out of it because the writer featured a house that's not an accessory dwelling, entitled it Nothing to Do with Accessory Dwellings, but this is out of the Portland ADU sort of Pacific Northwest movement. So this book hits Amazon, I think, in a week or 2. It's just an interesting book that's coming out, and this guy, the author, is going to be cruising around doing speaking. So if anyone wants to set it up, I just met him and we talked, so I figured I'd close on this coming out. And that's it for me.
Okay, we have time for 1 or 2 questions. Does anyone have a burning question?
I had one question on the preserving the shell, the 50%. Is that building code requirement, or is that coming?
Yeah, that's planning code requirement.
So is that now, in some cases, that would no longer remain the case?
It should be changing in many places. I think there was some of the state legislation had language about that, but I don't know if it's law. So when you get down to being in the field and doing it, it's not changing. People aren't going to risk that until it's very, very clear that you're not going to have your project derailed. So there's language and discussion of it changing, and having the right to get a survey to show where the walls were, demolish it, and rebuild. So there's progress on that front, but it's not there yet.
Said that you do recirculation quite a bit in the project.
So we actually we think about it often, and then we don't end up doing the recirculation. We did the calc on, like, how much water is in a water line going 15 to 20 feet, and it ends up being negligible loss if you're getting hot water from, the main house to the ADU 10 or 30 feet away.
So it sounds like you would actually echo the Gina's sentiment that it's not typically a good idea
to recirc. Yeah, we haven't done it, frankly.
Okay, great. And then we'll end with, what kind of ADU would you build if you were building one? And then switch over to presentation.
So I would do I will say I bought a house with an upstairs ADU. I was just telling someone we rented it to a family with 2 kids. That was a bad idea. Renting it to a single person is a great idea. So we already have that. We're going to do a junior ADU the first chance we get, which will be, in our case, $91,000 was my bid for the basement conversion because I'm on a hill. So that's probably what we're going to do.
Great. Thank you, Kevin.